many faces here tonight. I'm just a bit concerned that you're all not watching the Masters when you instead of watching me tonight. So it's good to see such a good turnout. I was discussing with Andrew earlier on about the release that we've had and being able to get back out onto the golf course. I hope you've all been out there and sampled the reality of the fairways again. We were just saying before the golf course that made a little bit of press on the 29th, certainly on social media, the one that decided on the 29th to close the course because it was a little bit too wet was actually my wife's golf course down the road here where we live. So you can imagine the PR disaster that was, that they closed the course on the 29th after being in lockdown for 3 months. And then it was a beautiful sunny day the rest of the day. So they're hopefully going to recover from that. But in the time I've got with you tonight, hopefully I can share some ideas with you, some things that'll be relevant for your golf going forward. I'm guessing that we all share a couple of things in common tonight. Obviously, golf's one of them, but I would imagine the other thing as well is the fact that you've come along to something like this. Everybody's fairly keen and curious to improve the game. So what I'd like to do first of all, I'm assuming that you've all come prepared for tonight. So I'm assuming that you've all got a notepad in front of you and a pen and a piece of paper. If you haven't got any of those things, you failed the first test miserably. I
see a few people getting up.
A few people getting up. There's no hiding place on Zoom, is there? Yeah, joking aside, if you can just grab a notepad and pen, brilliant. You'll get more from it. The first thing I'd like everybody to do on your note paper is write down what I believe to be a really important word for tonight. But more importantly, a really important word for this year. So if you could write the word possible. Possible. Now, as you write the word possible and consider the word for a moment, what I'd like you to do is just underneath that word is just pose a question to yourself. And that would be, what could be possible for my golf this year? What could be possible for my golf this year? And the one thing I would suggest everybody does is that you don't try and answer that straight away. You have a bit of a think about it, let this session come and go, and then maybe after you've had your meal tonight and you're watching the Masters, you just contemplate it a little bit more of what could be possible for you this year. And more importantly, what would be important about that possibility? Because many people will write down a lower handicap or lower scores, but it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be that. It could be playing different courses, different experiences, more enjoyment, whatever it is. But the reason I think it's so important would be this, is that I asked a number of people during lockdown. First of all, I said to them, how much are you looking forward to playing again? And you can imagine the response from most people to that question. But then I said to them, do you want to pick up where you've left off in terms of your golf? Do you want to just go back and carry on as you were before? And a few people said yes, but overwhelmingly, most golfers said no. They said, I actually don't want to just carry on as I was going before. I wasn't really getting out of the game what I truly want or what was important for me. So I think by taking this time now, because I don't talk so much about goals anymore. I'm much keener on talking about what I call a direction. And what happens for me is that when you point yourself in a direction and you have clarity of where you want to go with that direction, it's surprising how many actions you'll find that will support that. So I think to give yourself a direction for your golf this year, and just imagine if you could get to the conclusion of 2021 and look back on the year and think, do you know what I set out to do, I actually did. And I think if you make that happen, I think it really would be worth all the effort. And what it also leads to then is the second question. You'll get the idea tonight as you go through this. You'll be bored with the questions I'll throw at you, but please bear with me at this stage. The second question, I think, it's for me the single most important question that golfers never ask. And I think it's so important that, again, I'll ask the question in a second, but I would recommend that everybody don't answer it. And even when you do answer it, don't take the first couple of answers that come out of your head. And that might sound a bit strange, but it'll be relevant in a second. Because when you ask this question, the answer to it is so important, because if you can get clarity on it, I promise you that your experience of the game this year will be a lot closer to what really matters to you. So that second question, which I'm sure you're dying to hear, it's so disarmingly simple. But if you could perhaps just jot it down, it very simply is, why do I play golf? Why do I play golf? Now, I know many of us have been in that situation on the golf course when you know, we can't hit our hat on any given day. And if somebody asked the question, why do you play golf? It would be a very short and abrupt answer to that question. And we've all been in that boat at various times. But I think if you can really think about what it is, why do you do this thing? What is it that's really, truly important for you? And what you get the chance to do, if you get the clarity on this, is something that was taught to me a few years ago by a chap called Vin Harris. Now Vin Harris has been part of the mindfulness course at Aberdeen University for the past number of years. Now we know mindfulness, it's a kind of buzz term, I suppose, but we know that being mindful is beneficial to us. We know that having a mind focused on what we're actually doing is a good thing. But he came out with this line, and I think it would be worth writing down, actually, because he said, it's very important to think about why you play golf when you play golf. Think about why you play golf when you play golf. Because I think very often we get disconnected from it in a big way. You know, in those far off days when I did these things to live audiences and had human beings in front of me rather than a screen, I'd ask that question to the audience, why do you play golf? And inevitably somebody's hand would go up. You know, Frank's hand goes up, and Frank says, I play golf for the social side. I love the social side of the game. And then almost inevitably afterwards, I've had this experience more than once, in the bar afterwards, one of Frank's friends will sidle up to me and he'll say, that was hilarious that Frank said that he plays golf for the social side of the game. The number of times that we've played with him, and if he has a 3-putt in the first 6 holes, he doesn't speak to anybody for another hour after that. So often when we get on the golf course, we can actually lose sight of the things that are important for us. When the chaos takes over and we're dropping shots and hitting poor putts and things like that. But as I'll allude to later, when you get real clarity on what's important for you with the game, it's not just a soft thing, it's not just a kind of tree huggy philosophy. There's actually a real performance element to it. Because as I'll explain later on, if you get real clarity on this, you do actually provide the platform for playing your best golf by being connected to what's important to you. You know, I struggled with that question for many, many years. It sounds so simple, but I really lost connection for me, what was important. And I finally understood after many years, because I got drawn into it all being about results and outcomes and things like that. And I finally got some real clarity on the idea. For me, the thing that I play golf for when I play it is I just love to create shots. You know, I love to be out there. And if I can get a really good picture in my mind of a shot that I want to play, and I get the body to remember what to do, and the shot matches the picture, that's really something special for me. Does it happen every time? Far from it. But if I stay true to that from the first tee to the 18th, it's surprising how many shots do come off. But the experience for me for that day is infinitely better than it certainly used to be. And I'm not saying that needs to be anybody else's reason for playing. It very much needs to be your own. So what I'm going to do now, hopefully, is share a screen with you. Please bear with me on this. I still feel very much a novice with Zoom. 12 months ago, I didn't even know what Zoom was. I actually thought Zoom was a song by a guy called Fat Larry, who used to have a band, and he got to #2 in the charts in the 1980s, and we used to listen to it at school. And now the last 12 months, everything has existed on Zoom or Teams, doesn't it? So let me just pop this up. If I suddenly disappear, you'll know I've pressed the wrong button. So let's just pop that one. Hopefully that's working.
Yeah, that's all good, Karl.
Andrew, are you there? Is that just popped up okay? The screen just get, yeah, great. Okay, right. Well, we don't need the advert. So let's go on to the first screen. So now you're probably thinking he's put the wrong slide up. He's got the presentations mixed up. He thinks he's doing a martial arts class. Bruce Lee as the first slide is actually correct. And you're probably thinking, what on earth has Bruce Lee got to do with my golf? I don't know about anybody else in the audience. For those of you like me who are past 21 years of age, do you remember that period in the late 70s and early 80s when there was a massive interest in martial arts? In the UK, there was a, do you remember in the days when there were only 3 channels on TV? There was BBC One, BBC Two, and ITV. And on BBC One on a Saturday night, there was a program called Kung Fu. I don't know if anybody remembers that. A few people nodding. Yeah, Kung Fu with a guy called David Carradine, where this guy was wandering aimlessly across the desert into various escapades and seeking enlightenment from a Shaolin priest. And there was huge popularity in martial arts, karate and Kung Fu and things like that. And probably the most the most famous martial artist of all time was Bruce Lee. Now, very sadly, he was taken from us way too soon. He was only in his late 30s when he sadly passed away. The story went that he lived a very pure life in terms of what he ate and he drank, and apparently he took some kind of medicine that really reacted badly with his system, and as I say, he sadly passed away. Now, as well as being a martial artist and a film star, Enter the Dragon was his most famous film. I mean, if anybody's watched that one, I think I've watched it about 18 times. It may be the worst film that's ever been made, but some of the fight scenes in there are incredible. But Bruce Lee was a philosopher. And when you delve into his life and you look at his life, he wrote extensively about all kinds of different subjects, not just martial arts. But some people reckon that he had a premonition that he was going to pass away relatively early. And he categorized just before he died, he categorized all his learning, everything that he felt he'd learned in his life through martial arts, into just 4 key points. And I'll just pop those up on the screen for you, because I've looked at this maybe 500 times in the last few years. And the more I look at it, the more I look at these 4 points, the more I think they're so important. And yes, you can apply them to martial arts, obviously, but my word, don't they apply to golf? And number 1 that you see at the top there, research your own experience. It sounds so incredibly simple, but I'd go as far as to say that 95, maybe 99% of golfers, I don't think we actually research our own experience. I certainly didn't for most of the time that I was trying to play. Because what I did was I believed, as many golfers do, that everything needed to be focused on what I did before the game, how I practiced, what I did before I went to the first tee, how I warmed up, all that kind of stuff. And then I was certainly obsessed with what I did when I got on the golf course. And all those things are relevant. But I realize now, when I look at what Bruce Lee had to say, that I was missing all the gold. I was really missing the nuggets of gold, because to me, we don't look at the most important aspect of the game, is we don't reflect after we've finished playing. And one thing I would recommend everybody consider this year, if there was ever a year to do this, and I promise you, if you'll humour me and give it a try, is for this year, for 2021, is get yourself and keep a golf journal. Have a book that you're going to write in. And I know it sounds really old-fashioned, that writing in a book, but you know, that's probably a bit the way that I'm wired. Some of the younger people are thinking, what on earth is that all about, writing in a book? But I promise you, if you keep a golf journal, because pretty much all of the players that I've worked with over the years, one of the things that I've found out is the ones who do pretty well are the ones who reflect the best. They reflect on what their experience was. And so this journal would be something that you would do, you know, when you finish playing. Some players have the journal in the car, and it only takes 5 minutes to do this, or so it would be at home. And my recommendation to start off the journal would be that you ask yourself a couple of questions when you finish playing this year, starting in your next round of golf. Now, the two questions, number one would be, if you perhaps want to write it down, is what were the 3 best shots today? What were the 3 best shots today? Now, by asking that question, potentially some magic happens, because as a result of asking that question, you've got to review your experience. Now, no matter how bad the day's been, I promise there'll be 3 in there somewhere. They may take a bit of searching out on some occasions, but they'll be in there, I promise you. On the good days, it's a nice experience because you've got to sift through quite a lot. But here's the key thing. You might want to write this down. As we understand it now, whatever you review, you rehearse. Whatever you review, you rehearse. And think about how important that potentially is. As you review your round of golf, if you do what most of us do, which is, even when we've played well, most golfers will say, oh, I shot 65, but, and the but is usually then followed by, I 3-putted the 12th, or I knocked it out of bounds on the 16th, and we sit and review the stuff that we didn't do well. Now, the question that most golfers ask is, tell me what I'm doing wrong. Now, that has some value, but it has nowhere near as much value as the question, what do I do when I do it right? What are my own personal experiences? What are my own personal formula for getting it right? And when you write the question, what were the 3 best shots today, and you write the answers down, you'll start to get some patterns. You'll start to see the kind of things that make you tick as an individual. There was a great story about Ben Hogan. And we all know Ben Hogan. He's lauded as having one of the greatest golf swings, if not the best golf swing of anybody's ever played the game. And many teachers analyze his movements to the nth degree. But apparently when he passed away, sadly, his wife went into his office and she found in his office extensive notebooks that he'd written. He'd written notes about every round of golf that he'd ever played. Now, I'm not expecting everybody to go to Hogan's lengths in terms of detail, but just simply asking the question, what were the 3 best shots, writing them out. It's a pleasurable experience in itself. And then the second question, and this was taught to me by a lady called Pia Nielsen, who's one of the best coaches of the past 25 years. She taught Annika Sorenstam, the best woman golfer of all time. And what Pia, she's very keen on reflection. And what Pia gets her players to do is answer this question. So if you just write these 3 words down, good, better, and how. And it's a brilliant frame, this. So what was good today? And you write it out, whatever was good today. So you reinforce that. What needs to be better? Or my bunker playing needs to be better, or my reactions need to be better. And then the beautiful question is how. How am I going to go about doing that? And I promise you, if you'll play golf this year, and after each round, you'll have a reflection and you'll ask those couple of questions, especially good, better, how, I promise you, you'll have an interesting year at the very least, because it's a very, very dynamic process. This, you're reinforcing what you do well, but you're actively looking at what you could improve, but then coming up with ideas of how to go about it, not just leaving it blank. So instead of all the emphasis on golf being before the game and during the game, this kind of idea, and then what you get to be able to do, as Bruce Lee said, you find out what's useful for you as a unique individual. I think if there was one piece of advice I'd give most golfers, is stop trying to look for the way to play golf. Stop trying to look for the way to play golf, and get a little bit closer to uncovering your way of doing it, your own unique way, your own unique sensations and feels. Am I saying that lessons are not important? Of course I'm not. Lessons with a good coach are vital, but it surely should always be your own personal sensations, your own personal feels that are so important. And then you get to add your own qualities to that. One of the things that I believe to be really useful, as Bruce Lee had said in the slide there, is an understanding of, I call it the secret. There isn't any secrets really, but it gets people's attention, if nothing else, if I say it's the secret. And that word is, again, if you perhaps want to just write it down, if somebody says to me, what is it that you do? I used to kind of go into long-winded self-justification years ago and try and sound clever, but now all I do is say that really what I do for a living is all about one word. In fact, it really is literally just about one word. Everything always comes back to this one word, and that word, if you perhaps want to just jot it down, is attention. Attention. It's only the most important thing. It's everything. If we're looking at golf, the quality of your golf, the quality of your shots, the quality of your experience, your enjoyment will all come back every single time to what you decide to pay attention to. And paying attention on purpose is a real skill. We think it's all about moving our body in certain ways, but your body will only move relative to what you are putting your attention on. Every round of golf is dictated by the focus of your attention. Now, underneath the word attention, if you could just write, actually, just draw two legs as though the word's supported like a table. And on the left-hand leg, if you just write the word useful. And on the right-hand leg, write the word useless. So useful and useless. And this would be my challenge for everybody this year, is that I want you to become what I call an attention detective, in the sense that I want you to get really curious about where your attention needs to be more regularly for you to get the most out of your game, to get more enjoyment out of it. And having your attention on that left-hand leg, that useless column, is such a return on investment, because don't we end up having our attention in some useless places when we get out there? You think about what we've all done. You go out to play golf with the best of intent. You want to play well, score low, enjoy yourself, and then think about what happens when you get out there. I mean, the classic one is you've played 3 holes and somebody in your 4-ball just mentions in passing, that the 4-ball in front seemed to be a little bit slow on the 3rd hole. Now, what was just a passing comment that just sort of flipped through the screen of your mind on the 3rd hole, by the time that you've got to the 9th hole, has now become something of a pathological obsession, that you can't seem to focus on anything other than how slow these 4 individuals are, the eternity that they seem to take on every green as they're holing out for 8s and 9s. And what's happened is your attention for the day has been completely hijacked. You started off with good intent, but off it went into the useless column. The other good example of attention is one I always look out for, You may have even experienced this already, even since you returned to the game. That little ritual that you go through on the first tee, you'll do it the next time that you play. You stand there, you greet your playing partners, you extend your hand out, you shake the hand warmly, and as you look them in the eye, you say, have a good game, good luck. So you offer the people that you are playing golf with some luck. You bequeath them some luck on the first tee. But woe betide if that individual that you've offered some luck to actually has any, because you'll get very distracted by that as he's bouncing balls off trees into the fairway, chipping in and hauling putts from everywhere. And you get to a point where you can't focus on anything other than for the fact you're playing golf with the luckiest bleep, bleep, bleep that's ever played the game. I know I'm labouring the point, but the key for me, though, is to sort of say, okay, attention's important, but how do I get better at it? How do I get better at putting my attention where it needs to be a little bit more often? And I think back to school days. It's a while ago now, but I think back to being at school. And I would imagine everybody listening tonight would have had this experience. It's pretty much a universal. At some point in your school days, one of the teachers will have said to you, concentrate on what you're doing. It was thrown at me many times, concentrate on what you're doing, but nobody ever gave me a concentration lesson. Nobody actually ever told me how to do it. They gave me a word, but not an actual how to. Attention, if there is a secret to it, I had an experience a few years ago where I was invited to a 3-day conference in London. And that 3-day conference was, the title of the 3 days was called Awaken the Giant Within. Who wouldn't want to go to a weekend with a title like that? The 3 days, Awaken the Giant Within, was run by, or is run by, a chap called Anthony Robbins, a very, very famous motivational chap. Many people will have heard of him. You may even have got some of his books or his videos. He's been very, very successful. Very big presence on stage. You know, Tony's 6'8", big suits, big teeth, the whole lot. Very sort of grand presence on stage. And you go to the 3 days. It was always in normal times. It's at the Excel Centre in London. Awaken the Giant Within. Now, the whole premise of the 3 days is that what you are going to do at the culmination of the 3 days is do what's known as the fire walk. Some of you may have heard of this idea that Tony's idea is that at the end of the 3 days, you'll have got yourself into such a state of mind that you'll be able to walk over these burning coals without your shoes on. And if you do that, you'll feel like you can do anything. You'll feel like you can knock walls down. Well, I remember sitting in the audience for a good 2 3/4 days, having no inclination whatsoever to do this fire walk. It didn't appeal to me one little bit. And even right at the end, I only did it because I was dragged out with the people I was with. And I have a vivid memory of, I took the shoes and socks off inside and I walked out, as everybody else did, barefoot, out onto the car park at the Excel Centre. And my first memory was how painful it was on the car park itself. I'd got nowhere near the burning coals, and just a few pebbles and a few stones on the car park had got me. Anyway, I get to the point of no return. I'm about to do the fire walk. And I can vividly remember the moment. I'm about to walk over these burning hot coals. And I glanced around me. And I saw a lot of people wearing T-shirts. And on the T-shirts, many of them had, they had on the T-shirt, "This is my 8th fire walk," or whatever number it was. "This is my 6th fire walk," and a big smiling face. And I saw all these people with "This is my 8th fire walk." And my abiding memory was, I thought, well, which bit didn't you get? Which bit didn't you understand? You know, do it once, take the learning and move on. It's not an inherently useful thing to keep walking over burning hot coals without your shoes on. I got absolutely nothing whatsoever from the firewalk. Zero. But what I did get from that weekend, and I didn't realize it at the time, was I would go as far as to say it was the most important thing that I've ever heard. And that's a fair old statement, but it's something that I've used with players ever since I understood it. And it's been immensely beneficial. But I didn't even see it until I looked back over my notes 3 or 4 weeks later. And there it was. And what Tony had said during that weekend, and if you write anything down tonight, I would recommend that you put this one down. He actually said during that weekend, he said, the quality of your life, and you can substitute life and golf, the quality of your life, the quality of your golf will be determined by the quality of your questions. Quality of your life will be determined by the quality of your questions. And I had no idea how important that was, but I do now. Because if I said to everybody right now, what can you hear in the background? Now, even though I've asked that question a million times, every time I ask it, I zone out of this session and I can hear the sounds in the garden here outside the office. And I guarantee everybody who's here tonight, just for a moment, you left the seminar. When I asked that question, what can you hear in the background? Your attention was diverted. And that's the beauty of it, is that questions focus our attention. In the battle for attention, they're the most powerful weapon that you have. And the great beauty of questions is that your brain can't resist answering it. So if questions focus our attention, and we want our attention in some better places when we play golf, surely it would be a good idea this year to potentially ask some better questions on a consistent basis on the golf course. And I'll explain in a second, it's ridiculously simple. But most golfers ask dreadful questions. Listen out for this one next time you play. You'll hear it before long after tonight. You'll hear somebody stand on a tee, look down the fairway, and they'll glance down the fairway and go, where's the trouble here? And well, you think what that question is getting you focusing on? What is that image? Is that painting in your mind? The other thing that questions do is if I said to everybody now, what does your car look like? Boom, up pops an image of your car. So that's the other powerful element to this, is questions create images. And why is that so important for golf? It's so important because golf is unique in the sense that we are the only sport where we're not looking where we're going. You think about that. We are the only sport we're not looking where we're going. When you throw a dart, you're looking at the board. When you bowl a ball on a green, you're looking at the jack. When you send a pass at rugby, you're looking at your teammate. You pick a ball up on the boundary, you're looking at the wicket keeper. Every other sport, we react to what we're looking at, apart from golf. Now, the next best thing to looking where you're going is having a clear image of what the task is. That is so important for your golf this year. The golf swing tends to get blamed for everything, but the quality of your shots will be, to a large degree, this year determined by the images that you have in your brain before you step into the shot. Because our body responds to images. One of the players that I've worked with for many years, Graham McDowell, told me a story recently of an experience that he had at the US Open in 2010, Pebble Beach, on the Sunday afternoon. And he told me about what happened as he was walking from the 9th green to the 10th tee. So you can imagine he's in this kind of white heat situation. He's walking from the 9th green to the 10th tee. He's in contention. And he told me about a random thought that popped into his head. And the random thought was, this will be your only chance ever to win a major. Now, can you imagine how useless that thought was right at that moment? You know, we think these good players, you'll watch them on the Masters over the next 4 days. We think these players are sailing along serenely and they never have bad thoughts going through their head. I promise you, they have got as much nonsense going through their head as we all have. They've got random thoughts popping into their head. Don't knock it into the lake on the 12th. Don't do this, don't do that. They'll have as much stuff going on as we do. But what McDowell did, and the idea that we can control thoughts is to me is a nonsense. We can't. If anybody knows what the next thought's going to be, you can explain to me how you manage that, because I don't know what my next thought's going to be a lot of the time. But what McDowell said he did, and this is hopefully the big takeaway for everybody, he said he realized as he was walking from the 9th green to the 10th tee that he couldn't control whether he won the Open or not. He couldn't decide that. But what he committed to doing for the next 9 holes was asking a good question on every shot. And when you see McDowell play, the question that he is going through his mind as he stands on the tee, the question in Graham's head, and it's such a ridiculously simple one, but you might want to jot it down as a reference. He very simply is asking himself the question, what does a good shot look like here? What does a good shot look like here? Now, even tonight, you're sitting in your kitchen, your living room, your dining room, your bedroom, or wherever, and you could imagine being on the golf course right now. Just pick a hole that you know well, and imagine being on the tee, and you can see what you can see to the left, you can see what you can see to the right, and then just ask the question, what does a good shot look like here? And I promise you, your brain will come up with an answer. It might see a shape of the shot, it might see a target or whatever. But that question does all of the things that the books tell us to do. You know, the books tell us to play one shot at a time. The books tell us to stay in the moment. All of those things don't mean a thing unless we have a mechanism to be able to do that. Now, I would say everybody this year, if your quest is to put a good swing on every shot when you play, you're probably going to be disappointed from the next round onwards, because even Ben Hogan couldn't do that. Jack Nicklaus couldn't. Mo Norman couldn't. But could you ask a good question on every shot? And all of a sudden, it's right in your control. Now, if you were to ask a good question on every shot, would it guarantee good golf? No. But would it increase your chances? My experience is it's amazing what can happen when you get real clarity with this question. There was a lady called Susie Mayers. I have a podcast that comes out every Friday called The Brain Booster. We've had some nice guests on it in the last few years, and probably the best one, or one of the best ones, is a lady called Susie Mayers. And Susie has a great phrase. She actually wrote a book about it, and it's such a great description of golf done well. And the book that she wrote is called Point A Golf. Point A Golf. And she described to me what Point A Golf was. And it's so unbelievably simple, but she said virtually no golfers do it, because Point A Golf works like this. You get to the first tee, and the shot that you have on the first tee, you're at point A, in the sense that this shot has got no past, it's got no future. It's just this unique shot in this unique moment. You play the shot, you walk down the fairway, you get to your next shot, and you're at point A again. This shot's got no past, no future. It's just a unique shot. The golf course is asking a unique question in this moment. Sounds a very simple way of playing the game. But she said that most people don't play point A golf. What we do is we play A to B to C golf. And what that looks like is that you can imagine it. We have a 3-putt. We 3-putt the previous green, and we're blazing mad about it because we've hit 2 good shots onto the green. And as we walk to the next tee, it's a par 5. And right, we're going to make a birdie on the next hole because it's a par 5. We're going to make up for the one that we've dropped. So we just open our shoulders a little bit more on the tee, trying it a little bit further. Just to try and knock it that bit further down the par 5 to make sure we make the birdie to make up for the one that we've dropped on the previous hole. But as a result of that, the ball goes in the trees on the right-hand side. But you get down there and you're still going to make 4. And you manage to see, you locate a gap in the trees. Now, the gap in the trees is a fraction narrower than any gap that even Seve Ballesteros at his best tried to go through. But today is going to be your day. You're going to do it. So you get the 3-wood out, and you can see that tiny gap. You're focused in well, and you make a swing, and you make lovely contact with it right at the middle of the 3-wood. But as the ball disappears behind you, as it's pinged off one of the trees, and then a few moments later, you sign for a 9 on the green, you realize that you've not played point A golf. You've been playing A to B to C golf. You've been linking one shot to another, to another, to another. And as she explained to me, just even asking yourself the question when you play, just occasionally asking yourself the question, am I at point A? It's a great way of bringing yourself back. You know, again, the power of questions. Am I at point A? This shot, this moment, it's got no past, it's got no future. I found it to be really beneficial because it links in for me with that idea for me of creating golf shots. It just allows me to come back right here to this particular moment. Because the thing that we often miss with golf is that, you know, everybody talks about consistency, but nobody's consistent. No player in the world is consistent because there's too many variables. This shot, this next shot that you've got, you've never had it before and you'll never have it again. So it requires your attention in that particular moment. And I think point A is actually quite a good question, not just for golf. You know, am I at point A? Am I here? Am I focused on what I can do right now? No past, no future, just this particular challenge, whatever it is. And that leads to this question that I want to pose to everybody. I'm conscious I'm running out of time. I get a bit carried away once I get started, unfortunately. I feel like I've only just hit a couple of shots and I've got to come off the course shortly. Hopefully you'll stay with me though. This question I want you to think about for the year is, the question would be, do you want to develop more style or more skill? In fact, if you just write that question down, I'm just going to turn the heating down in here as I fry. Do you want to develop more style or more skill this year? And I think back to my playing days. I only spent, probably being a quick learner, I only spent 25 years trying to develop better style. As I say, being a bit sharp and on the uptake, after 25 years, I realized that I'd been disappearing down so many blind alleys and dark tunnels, because style is all about how the golf swing looks. And I used to believe that if I could just get myself moving in a certain way, if I could just put the club in certain positions, if I could just get my body organized in certain ways, that would be the holy grail, and I'd be hitting great shots all the time. And I now realize how erroneous that was. Because, as I mentioned at the beginning, we're all different, we're all unique. And I think it's a great limitation to try and copy somebody's style. Yes, we can have influences and we can have guides about what we're trying to do. But ultimately, especially when you look at those three players, this game is about skills. Look at those three. You know, Dustin Johnson, Shane Lowry, cross the line. Dustin Johnson, that bowed left wrist. Jim Furyk doing what Jim Furyk does. This was 1, 2, and 3 at the US Open a few years ago. Now, do these players have great style? Probably not. But do they have great skill? Immense, immense skills. And what is a skill? A skill, to me, is the ability to be really clear on what you need to do to produce better shots. Because as far as I'm aware, when you play golf this year, at the end of the round, they'll ask you how many shots you've taken. They won't ask you how many swings you've made. And as I often say to players, it's not ice skating. You don't get any marks for how good it looks. As much as we like the idea of a good-looking golf swing, in many ways, video was supposed to be the answer for everything. But a video, in many ways, I'm not saying it should never be used, but in many ways, video has been a disaster for a lot of golfers, as we've become obsessed with how the thing looks. Now, as an example of a skill, if there was one skill I would suggest that you consider for this year to focus on, and you can start literally from tonight, and I promise you this one skill is so ridiculously simple, but it potentially transforms your game. as a result of attention. And that skill, and as I said, you'll be blown away by how ordinary this is just develop the skill, if you can, this year of hitting the ball at the middle of the club more often. Now, I know a lot of people are thinking, no, you know, how much more obvious could it possibly be than that? Well, I promise you, even some very good players, we as golfers spend almost all of our time focusing our attention almost everywhere other than where we strike the ball in terms of the club face. Now, I promise you, if you look, you can go from driver to putter with this. If you want to hit it further off the tee, you can definitely aim to go to the gym. You can get better equipment. You can swing it fast. You can do all of those things. But the quickest route is hit it out the middle of the club more often. You'll hit more fairways. You'll get more pleasure from the game. Now, one of the fastest ways to do that is to become aware of where you currently are. One of the things with a skill is to find out where you currently are with your skill. And a very simple thing that you can do, and I know the shops are going to be back open on Monday, but even before then, you could nip down to the chemist. Believe it or not, going to the chemist could have a big impact on your game. Go to the chemist and get some of the old-fashioned foot powder, the spray, Dr. Scholl foot spray. And you can see on the picture on the screen there, that club face has been sprayed with the Dr. Scholl on the face. And if you hit some shots, you can even do it on the golf course if you want, but preferably on the range or in the net, something like that. Find out where you strike the ball. And I promise you, at first, you'll be quite surprised. You know, you might be quite erratic with it. With putting, your putting will dramatically improve if you can strike the middle of the putter more often. Why? You will reduce your three puts dramatically, because if you hit the middle of the putter more often, you will judge pace better. Now, most people three putt not because they're poor at direction, it's because they're poor at pace. Direction is a factor, but pace is everything. And if you hit the middle of the putter more often, your ability to control pace is dramatically improved. And one of the things that you can do with your putter is, even tonight, you know, if you have 5 minutes, I know you'll be watching the Masters, but you can try this, and it gives an example of how you can develop skills. So start with the ball in the middle of the putter, swing the putter back, and hit five putts deliberately off the toe. So you start in the middle and you hit it deliberately off the toe. Do 5 putts where you start in the middle, deliberately hit it out of the heel. Now, if you think about it, if you can deliberately hit it out of the toe and you can deliberately hit it out of the heel, where else can you go? All of a sudden now you've developed a skill of centered strike. And the way you've done it is the way that we learn all things. We don't learn to do things by doing it correctly. A baby doesn't learn to walk by doing it right. A baby learns to walk by falling to the left, falling to the right, falling forward, falling backwards, and eventually they organize. And we don't do enough of this at golf. We're just trying to move it. We're trying to do it right all the time. Well, actually, if you can feel either side of what's right, I call it trapping the feeling. It's a great principle of learning. You trap the feeling. You feel what's this side, you feel what's that side, and your brain will organize in the middle. Some magic happens with this. It was an experience I had a few years ago in China. I was out there doing some certifications, some Mind Factor certifications for Chinese coaches. And to this day, I still have shivers down my spine when I think about this experience. Because we were struggling a little bit with it. You can imagine the language barrier was a bit of an issue. You know, my Mandarin's not particularly extensive. And out of desperation one afternoon, we came up with this. And I still get messages from some of the Chinese coaches telling me, they said they messaged me and said, we're still collecting the dots. And what we did, because of the language barrier, we came up with this idea. And what we did was, in the club face, we put a big red dot in the club face. And on the golf ball, we put a big blue dot. So a dot on the face, a dot on the golf ball. And we told the Chinese golfers to just swing the golf club and collect the dots. To this day, I've never forgotten the quality of the shots, the strikes, the ball flights. Now, you think what was happening from an attentional perspective. Those Chinese golfers were free from lots of technical thinking. The only thing they were focused on, their attention was on the dot on the club. And if the dot on the club met the dot on the ball, you know, job done. And again, what sounds ridiculously simple. I've even had some tour plays, because you can get quite advanced with what you do with the dots. If you can influence the direction that the dot's moving in, you can influence everything. You can influence the path of the club and the club face and everything. But it comes back to Bruce Lee, find out what's useful. You know, we've found that having your attention on a dot on the club face seems to be pretty useful, because it's right at the heart of the skill of striking a golf ball. It's right at the heart of the skill of producing shots. You can try and have your attention on shoulders, hips and legs and armpits and all the rest of it and see how that goes. But when you home it in, you know, we are the only sport, I think, where we're not really tuned into the implement in our hand. You know, a cricketer is finely tuned to the bat. A tennis player is finely tuned to the racket. We have our attention a lot of time almost everywhere, other than the real influence of what produces shots is the club face. You know, John Jacobs was saying that 50, 60 years ago. So, as I say, I know I've gone a little bit over time. I hope you've found those ideas, some of the thoughts. I know they're a little bit, some are a little bit left field, maybe a little bit different. Please don't think, oh, I'm not at any point saying that lessons are not valuable. They are very valuable, and working on your game, obviously, but there's some just hopefully one or two different ideas tonight of things that you can look at. So just to round off from my bit before we do the sort of questions, Andrew runs through the questions. What I'd ask everybody to do is, we've talked about quite a lot of things tonight, is just write down maybe 2 or 3 maximum. Write down what's resonated for you. What do you think would be beneficial for you? Because I think, you know, we've talked about a good bit tonight, and it's very easy to sort of end up trying to do all sorts of different things. I'd much rather somebody take one thing from tonight and get some benefit from it, rather than trying to do everything that we've said. Even though the other stuff hopefully has been interesting, it really is about narrowing. It comes back to that word attention. So if you can just jot 1 or 2 things down, hopefully that's useful to you. I've actually put up on the screen there. I'm always interested to see what people get from these sessions. So I put my email address there, which is karl@themindfactor.com. At some point in the future, if you want to let me know what you've written down tonight, that would be great to hear from you. And certainly if there's any questions later on, days and weeks ahead, more than happy to answer those if I can help. I've also put up there, I have a program that many players have used. It's called the Breakthrough program. It's a course that once you download it, you've got it for the rest of your life. It's a strong visual backup to the things we've talked about with attention, but things that you can do in your training and practice and putting and things like that. So there's 18 videos. There's some an audio program and also a book in there, an ebook. Now, if anybody's interested in that, anybody's interested in getting that at some point, just email me, because for anybody who's been on the session tonight, we'll do 50% off the normal price on that if you're interested. But just email me on that one. But Andrew, I think that's it from me in terms of the presentation bit. Hopefully that's been useful.
Yes, thank you very much, Karl. That's been brilliant. I think what's really confirmed for, well, definitely a very amateur golfer in me, that the mind is a very important thing when it comes to playing golf, and can be applied. Obviously, lots of things that we apply in our lives can be applied to what we do on the golf course. Mark just asked quickly, could you give a few more examples of things that would to focus on that are useful in terms of the attention side of things? We've obviously dealt with quite a few useless things. Have you got any takeaway useful things that should be added to that list?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and we could do another seminar on the answer to that question. I think I didn't get a chance to cover it tonight, but another hopefully useful area is, I call it the 90%. that 90% of golf, we're not actually playing golf. You know, we're walking, we're doing things in between shots. And a lot of the time in that 90%, we're either in the past or in the future. We're thinking about stuff that we should have done better, or we're thinking about stuff we hope works out at some point in the future. So one of the things that everybody might want to jot down is, you know, we're all told about being in the present. But a very simple thing to do to be more present is an attentional focus on your body. You know, if I said to everybody now, can you notice the feeling of your feet on the floor? Well, just for a moment, you're in the moment, because your body can't do time travel. You know, you can send your mind into last week, and you can send your mind into the future, but you can't send your body there. So any time that you pay attention and focus on your physical body, it's a great way of coming back to the kind of here and now. And it's also it's actually a pleasurable thing to do. I get a lot of players in between shots. I know it sounds a bit corny, but it really does help. Is just to simply put their attention either on the breathing, on the rise and fall of the breath, or on the feeling of the feet on the floor as they're walking along. And a lot of players, when they do that, they report back that they feel a sense of rhythm in the walk that actually helps the rhythm in the golf swing.
Excellent.
But yeah, we'll have to do a follow-up seminar on that question.
Quick other ones. Ian's asked, can Karl briefly describe his views on the importance of a post-shot routine?
Yeah, brilliant question. And yeah, I think a post-shot routine is something that can only be beneficial, really. Is you know, we've talked about what you do before the shot. We've talked about what you might do with the shot, but actually there's an outcome. And how are you going to react to that outcome? Because it's very often, it's not so much the bad shots that cause the problem at golf. It's very often it's the reaction to the bad shots. Now, I would say in terms of routine, post-shot routine, the thing that we've worked on the most with the good players over the years is the concept of acceptance. I think if you can play golf and commit 100% that you are going to accept whatever the outcome is, good, bad, or indifferent. And it sounds an easy concept, but actually it takes some real work to do that. But but when you can really buy into acceptance, so you will deal with it wherever it goes. If it goes left, if it goes right, up or down, you'll deal with it and you'll move on. I think that is such an incredible skill. Nobody ever gets it 100%. And acceptance isn't giving up. It doesn't mean to say you're not trying to make good shots. You know, you create a clear intention of the shot that you're trying to play. But if you can accept any outcome, I think about Bernard Langer when I hear the word acceptance or say the word acceptance. I think Bernard Langer is a great example of somebody who seems to just, whatever the golf ball does, he gets on with it, moves on. You know, you'll see it in the next 4 days. The people who who are up top of the leaderboard, at some point during the 4 days, they're going to have to accept some poor shots and get on with it. So I think acceptance.
Follow-up question as well, which is in the same kind of vein. If some amount of stress is useful in life, in, for example, getting tasks done, can stress be useful in golf?
Yeah. I mean, I think it comes back to Bruce Lee's point. Really, is you know, research your own experience and find out what's useful. So I think some golfers do play well with a little bit of edge to them and a bit of stress involved, and you know, focusing on things that would make other people stressed. So it you know, many other. I can think of numerous tour players where you've got to just create a mindset where you're reducing this perceived importance of the event. On the other hand, I can think of, you know, Graham McDowell's a good example. Actually, you've got to ramp the stress up for him. You've got to make it seem almost more important than it really is, because he plays well under a stressful situation. So definitely for some players, it can be useful. I would say overwhelmingly for most players, it isn't.
And finally, Karl, just one, I think, obviously a topical question from David. What would you say to Lee Westwood after being 6 over through 12 holes at the Masters. Obviously, I think that might be, I haven't caught the scores yet, but I reckon that might be where he is, I believe, today. So
right, that's obviously where he is. What would I say? What would I say to him? Make some birdies on the last 6, I think, is probably a good idea. But no, I tell you what, he'll get on with it. I mean, I know he's done some great work. I'm not sure the chap's name, but the last few years. But interestingly, Westwood's talked a lot in the last few years, and he's done so well. You know, it's amazing at his age, he's still in contention. He's talked a lot about 2 words that I keep hearing him say. One is acceptance, and one is gratitude. You know, he just feels ever so grateful that the fact that he's still out there playing. So I'm a dreadful forecaster, but if he's 6 over after 12, don't write him off just yet.
Yeah, that's a good one. Anyway, Karl, thank you so much. On behalf of the Lamberhurst membership, it's been a fantastic hour and really insightful. And I think everyone's really enjoyed it. So thank you very much for giving your time. And we hope to see you again soon. And we'll have another one on more topics, more things to chat about.
Yeah, thanks ever so much, Andrew. I do appreciate you organising it. Thanks everybody for turning up. It's been great to see so many people here tonight. You've had the little starter now. You can get on with the main course and go and watch the Masters now and watch the real golf. So please keep in touch, and any help, just drop me an email. Thanks ever so much.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Karl. We'll be in touch. Thank you.
Bye-bye.